Welcome, friends and strangers. Some of you have met me before, but I am Mrs. Hudson, and for several years I was landlady here in Baker Street. To two remarkable gentlemen, a few weeks ago, Dr. Watson asked me if I would permit him to host a birthday celebration for Mr. Holmes here in my parlor. I was, of course, delighted. Now I shall let Dr. Watson take the floor.
Thank you, and I am delighted, too, to see so many people here on this January day in 1914 to help celebrate the 60th birthday of my dear friend. But Sherlock Holmes disdains any sort of public adulation. He has sent me a letter. My dear Watson, please forgive my absence from what I am sure will be an effusive and unnecessary display of gratitude. At the behest of my brother Mycroft, and hence His Majesty's government, I am on the continent, scuttling like a crab between Paris and Berlin, St. Petersburg and Vienna, attempting to deduce whether the alliances will seek arbitration and a peaceful resolution of disputes or plunge Europe into war. Obviously, this endeavor of mine must take precedence over something so trivial as a birthday party, even or especially my own. Very truly yours, Sherlock Holmes. Nevertheless, I have invited some of his clients and other people in his orbit to perform a song or two that would perhaps echo their experiences with my illustrious friend. Of course, their adventures were not exactly comedic, but I am pleased to say that in the spirit of the occasion, they have come prepared with popular songs from the theater and the music hall stage. Before we begin the entertainments, however, please rise and join in the singing of God Save the King. God save our gracious King, long live our noble King, God save the King. Send him victorious, happy and glorious, long to reign over us, God save the King. Thank you. You may be seated. I would like to mention here, too, that the gramophone company has graciously provided us with a reproducing apparatus so that when Holmes returns to London, he will be able to hear this musicale for himself. But I am informed by the gramophone company that the best fidelity of sound will be obtained if only the performers and not the audience are singing. Now, to begin the musicale, please welcome Inspector Lestrade of Scotland Yard.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. You have in your stories made rather a caricature of me as a gloomy, unpleasant sort of man. So, they will be surprised to discover that I have a sense of humor. Ha ha! And in particular, that I can laugh at my own profession. Like many members of the Metropolitan Police Force, I am fond of a song that pokes fun at the constabulary. When a felon's not engaged in his employment, or maturing his felonious little plans, his capacity for innocent enjoyment,
Enjoyment
is just as great as any honest man's.
honest man.
Our feelings we with difficulty smother. When constabulary duties to be done. Take one consideration with another. A policeman's lot is not a happy one. When constabulary duties to be done. A policeman's lot is not a happy one. When an enterprising burglar's not a burgling. When the cutthroat isn't occupied in crime. He loves to hear the little brook a-gurgling. And listen to the merry village chime. When the coster's finished jumping on his mother. He loves to lie basking in the sun. Take one consideration with another. A policeman's lot is not a happy one. When constabulary duties to be done. Policeman's lot is not a happy one.
Thanks to Holmes's intervention, Miss Violet Smith has quite gotten over the anxiety of being pursued by a solitary cyclist and forced at gunpoint into a sham marriage. The man to whom she was actually engaged is an electrical engineer from Coventry, to whom Violet Smith is now happily married. So please welcome Mr. Cyril Morton.
My darling Violet had a frightening experience indeed, Dr. Watson, but she and I continue to enjoy cycling together. There is a flower within my heart, Daisy, Daisy, planted one day by a glancing dart, planted by Daisy Bell. Whether she loves me or loves me not, sometimes it's hard to tell. Yet I am longing to share the lot of beautiful Daisy Bell. Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer, do. I'm half crazy, oh, for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage, I can't afford a carriage, but you'll look sweet up on the seat of a bicycle built for two. We will go tandem as man and wife, Daisy, Daisy, peddling our way down the road of life, I and my Daisy Bell. When the road's dark we shall both despise policemen and lamps as well. There are bright lights in the dazzling eyes of beautiful Daisy Bell. Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer, do. I'm half crazy, oh, for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage, I can't afford a carriage, but you'll look sweet up on the seat of a bicycle built for two. I will stand by you in weal or woe, Daisy, Daisy, you'll be the bell which I'll ring, you know, sweet little Daisy Bell. You'll take the lead in each trip we take, and if I don't do well, I shall permit you to use the brick, my beautiful Daisy Belle. Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer due. I'm half crazy, oh, for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage, I can't afford a carriage, but you look sweet up on the seat of a bicycle built for two.
I reached out to a certain adventuress, and she did not disappoint me. Please welcome Mrs. Irene Norton, née Adler.
I was initially reluctant to accept Dr. Watson's invitation, feeling that Mr. Holmes would not welcome a woman who got the better of him and his client, the King of Bohemia. But here I am, delighted to perform a song that celebrates the independence that a woman of the world can achieve, even at the risk of being considered risque. A smart and stylish girl, you see, belle of good society, not too strict but rather free, yet as right can be. Not too timid, not too bold, not too hot and not too cold, not too young and not too old, just the kind for sport, I'm told. Ta-ra-ra-boom-tie, 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 ta-ra-ra-boom-tie. A blushing bud of innocence, Papa says at big expense. Old maids say I have no sense. Boys declare I'm just immense. Before my song I do conclude, I want it strictly understood. The fond of fun, I'm never rude. Though not too bad, I'm not too good. Ta-ra-ra-boom-tie, 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 ta-ra-ra-boom-tie. Ta-ra-ra-boom-tie, 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 ta-ra-ra-boom-tie.
And now, please, welcome Mr. Henry Baker.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm a bit nervous. It was my lost hat that led Mr. Holmes to recover the stolen blue carbuncle. So I think it is appropriate for me to perform this little ditty. Now, how I came to get this hat is really rather funny. Grandfather died and left to me his property and money. And when the will it was read out, they told me straight and flat, if you would have his money, you have got to wear his hat. Oh, where did I get that hat? Where did you get that hat? Isn't it a nobby thing and just the proper style? I would like to have one just the same as that. Wherever I go, they start, hello, where did you get that hat? At 21, I thought I would to my sweetheart get married. People in the neighborhood thought we too long had tarried, and so right quick we went to church, as heavy as you can. And when I got there momently, the papa said, young man, where did you get that hat? Where did you get that tile? Isn't it a noble thing and just the proper style? I should like to have one just the same as that. Wherever I go, they shout, hello! Where did you get that hat?
Regarding Holmes's cases, it has frequently been brought to my attention that some persons attribute their authorship to another doctor, an ophthalmologist by trade who served in the medical corps during the Boer War and who has written a few, I must admit, well-received stories and novels. And because he is better known than I, Dr. Arthur Conan Doyle has occasionally represented me to publishers as a de facto literary agent. So when I wrote The Final Problem, assuming Holmes was dead, and then when I described his return from a 6-year sojourn abroad, the public naturally assumed that Dr. Doyle was responsible for this news. It was not surprising, therefore, that in 1903, a rising young humorist, Mr. Pelham Grenville Woodhouse, satirized Holmes's return in a bit of light verse, which he titled Back to His Native Strand. Oh, Sherlock Holmes lay hidden more than half a dozen years. He left his loving London in a whirl of doubts and fears, for we thought a wicked party of the name of Moriarty had dispatched him in a manner fit to freeze one.
They grappled on a cliff top on a ledge 6 inches wide. We deemed his chances flimsy when he vanished o'er the side. But the very latest news is that he merely got some bruises. If there's a man who's hard to kill, why, he's one.
Oh, Sherlock, Sherlock, he's in town again. That prince of perspicacity, that monument of brain. It seems he wasn't hurt at all by tumbling down that waterfall. That sort of thing is fun to Sherlock.
When Sherlock left his native strand, such groans were seldom heard. With sobs the public's frame was rent, with tears its eyes were blurred. But the optimist reflected that he might be resurrected. It formed our only theme of conversation.
We asked each other, would he be, and if so, how and where? We went about our duties with a less dejected air. And they say that the suggestion of a parliamentary question was received with marked approval by the nation.
And Sherlock, he's in town again. Sir Conan has discovered him and offers to explain. The explanation may be thin, but bless you, we don't care a pin if he'll but give us back our Sherlock.
The burglar groans and lays aside his jenny keys and drill. The enterprising murderer proceeds to write his will. The fraud-promoting jobber feels that those who rob the felon finds no balm in his employment.
The forger and the swindler start up shrieking in their sleep. No longer on his mother does the coster gaily leap. The mile-end sportsman ceases to kick passers-by to pieces, or does it with diminishing enjoyment.
For Sherlock, he's in town again. That prince of perspicacity, that monument of brain.
The world of crime has got the blues for Sherlock's back and after clues.
And everything's a clue to Sherlock. You all know that apart from his knowledge of chemistry and botany, Holmes's knowledge of the sciences is feeble. But I was pleased to hear him cite Charles Darwin whilst we were in the middle of the case I later called A Study in Scarlet. I was so impressed by what he said over breakfast that I wrote it down. Holmes asked, and I quote, "Do you remember what Darwin says about music? He claims that the power of producing and appreciating it existed among the human race long before the power of speech was arrived at. Perhaps that is why we are so subtly influenced by it," unquote. So it is only fitting today that we should have a song that was, shall we say, influenced by Charles Darwin. It is by Sir William Gilbert and Sir Arthur Sullivan from their operetta Princess Ida, which is set in a college for women. Here to perform it is one of the principal singers of the D'Oyly Carte Opera Company today, Mrs. Bertha Lewis, playing the role of Lady Psyche, the college's professor of humanities.
And I will tell you the story that Ida tells about the rise of man. A maiden fair of lineage high was loved by an ape in the days gone by. The maid was beauteous as the sun. The ape was a most unsightly one. The ape was a most unsightly one. So it would not do. His scheme fell through, for the maid, when his love took formal shape, expressed such terror at his monstrous error that he stammered an apology and made his escape, the picture of a disconcerted ape. With a view to rise in the social scale, he shaved his bristles and he docked his tail. He grew mustachios and he took his tub, and he paid a guinea to a toilet club. Paid a guinea to a toilet club, but it would not do. The scheme fell through, for the maid was beauty's fairest queen, with golden tresses like a real princess's. But the ape, despite his razor keen, was the apiest ape that ever was seen. He bought white ties and he bought dress suits. He crammed his feet into bright tight boots, and to start in life on a brand new plan, he christened himself Darwinian Man. He christened himself Darwinian Man, but it would not do. The scheme fell through, for the maiden fair whom the monkey craved was a radiant being with a brain foreseeing, while Darwinian Man, though well behaved, at best is only a monkey shaved.
When I was planning this musicale, my wife insisted that I include songs that touch on the two great social issues of our time. Please welcome Mrs. Watson.
There is a cause that is dear to my heart, and I hope it is likewise dear to all the women here today. I refer, of course, to the suffrage movement. Shout, shout, up with your song, cry with the wind, for the dawn is breaking. March, march, swing you along, why blows a ballad and hope is waking. Song with its story, dreams with their glory, now they call, and glad is the word. Forward, hark how it swells, thunder of freedom, the voice of the Lord. Comrades, ye who have dared, first in the battle to strive on sorrow, scorned, spurned, not have you cared, raising your eyes to a wider morrow. Ways that are weary, days that are dreary, toil and pain, by faith ye have borne. Hail, hail, victors we stand, wearing the wreath that the brave have worn. Life, strife, those two are one, nor can ye win but by faith and daring. On, that ye have done, but for the work of today preparing. Firm in reliance, laugh at defiance, laugh in hope, for sure is the end. March, march, many as one, shoulder to shoulder, and friend to friend. For this next song of social significance, I have the honor to present Lady Caroline Sommerset, President of the British Women's Temperance Association.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Watson. The white ribbon I wear is a symbol of the temperance movement in Britain. Now, I certainly realize that some members of this audience may not be receptive to the idea of temperance. But, as Dr. Watson wrote, Sir Eustace Brackenstall of the Abbey Grange, the richest man in Kent, was a violent, abusive drunkard. And I'm sorry, Dr. Watson, but even your unhappy brother took to drink and died a drunkard, as Mr. Holmes famously deduced from examining the man's pocket watch. Across the pond, the Christian Women's Temperance Union has adopted a song by Henry Clay Work as its anthem. What person could fail to be moved to tears by the voice of a child standing at the tavern door as she pleads with her father to come home? Father, dear father, come home with me now. The clock in the steeple strikes 1. You promised, dear father, that you would be home as soon as your day's work was done. The house is all cold, the fire has gone out, and mother's been watching since tea. With poor brother Benny so sick in her arms, and no one to help her but me. Come home, come home, come home. Oh, father, dear father, come home. Father, dear father, come home with me now. The clock in the steeple strikes 2. The night has grown colder, and Benny is worse, and he has been calling for you. Indeed, he is worse. Ma says he may die, perhaps before morning shall dawn. And this is the message she sent me to bring. Please hurry, or he will be gone. Come home, come home, come home. Oh, Father, dear Father, come home. Father, dear Father, come home with me now. The clock in the steeple strikes 3. The house is so lonely, the hours are so long for poor weeping mother and me. Yes, we are alone. Poor Benny is dead and gone with the angels of light. And these are the very last words that he said. I want to kiss Papa good night. Come home, come home, come home. Oh, Father, dear Father, come home.
Among the letters of invitation that I broadcast widely, a reply came from, well, let me just say that none of you would be here today if it were not for young Stamford, who in 1881 introduced me to Sherlock Holmes. As he is now considerably older, Stamford, he is regrettably unable to travel and join us today. But we have been speaking over the telephone, reminiscing and recalling the days of our youth when we were students. And so, in his honor, I shall recite a poem which evokes those bygone days. The Duet by Ella Wheeler Wilcox. I was smoking a cigarette. Maud, my wife, and the tenor McKee were singing together a blithe duet, and days it were better I should forget came suddenly back to me. Days when life seemed a gay masked ball, and to love and be loved was the sum of it all. As they sang together, the whole scene fled, the room's rich hangings, the sweet home air, stately Maud with her proud blonde head, and I seemed to see in her place instead a wealth of blue-black hair and a face, yours, Lizette. Face it were wiser I should forget. We were back, well, no matter when or where, but you remember, I know, Lizette. I saw you, dainty and debonair, with the very same look that you used to wear in the days I should forget. And your lips, as red as the vintage we quaffed, were pearl-edged bumpers of wine when you laughed. 2 small slippers with big rosettes peeped out from under your kilt skirt there as we sat smoking our cigarettes. Ah, I shall be dust when my heart forgets, and singing together that same air. And between the verses, for interlude, I kissed your throat and shoulders nude. Oh, you were so full of a subtle fire. You were so warm and so sweet. Lizette, you were everything that men admire. We had no fetters to make us tire. Oh, you were a pretty grisette. But you loved, as only such natures can, with a love that makes heaven and hell for a man. They have ceased singing that old duet, Stately Maud and the tenor McKee. You are burning your coat with your cigarette, and qu'avez-vous, dearest, your lids are wet, Maud says, as she leans over me. And I smile and lie to her, husband-wise. Oh, it is nothing but smoke in my eyes. When I was corresponding with Miss Adler, Mrs. Norton, she asked if I intended to invite her erstwhile antagonist. I did, yes, invite him, though I never expected him to appear or even reply. But imagine my surprise when a letter arrived from Wilhelm Gottsreich Sigismund von Ormstein, the hereditary king of Bohemia. I shall read you his letter. Herr Doctor, your invitation we must decline. However, we believe a patriotic sentiment is wanted, a patriotic ballad cut and dried. We would have a song of admiration for the exalted monarchs of the British Empire. And if we should ever permit the creation of a parliament in Bohemia, we would have it filled with men like the hereditary peers in Britain's House of Lords. It would please us to know you included a song of praise for those noble men as well. Well, I think this song will satisfy His Majesty and at the same time give his nose a tweak. When Britain really ruled the waves in good Queen Bess's time, the House of Peers made no pretense to intellectual eminence or scholarship sublime. Yet Britain won her proudest bays in good Queen Bess's glorious days. Yes, Britain won her proudest bays in good Queen Bess's glorious days. Yes, Britain won her proudest bays in good Queen Bess's glorious days. When Wellington thrashed Bonaparte, as every child can tell, the House of Peers throughout the war did nothing in particular and did it very well. Yet Britain set the world ablaze in good King George's glorious days. Yes, Britain set the world ablaze in good King George's glorious days. Yes, Britain set the world ablaze in good King George's glorious days. And when the House of Peers withholds its legislative hand, and noble statesmen do not itch to interfere in matters which they do not understand, as bright will shine Great Britain's rays as in King George's glorious days. As bright will shine Great Britain's rays as in King George's glorious days. As bright will shine Great Britain's rays as in King George's glorious days.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for helping us to celebrate the 60th birthday of Sherlock Holmes, with a musicale appearing tonight were Leslie Middlebrook as Irene Adler and Mrs. Watson, Stephen Moe Hanan as Inspector Lestrade and Mr. Henry Baker, Kathy Frankovic as Mrs. Bertha Lewis and Lady Caroline Sommerset. Coren Rhodes as Cyril Morton. And Hal Glatzer as Dr. Watson. And I am Nancy Winston. Thank you. A Musicale in Mrs. Hudson's Parlor was scripted and directed by Hal Glatzer and produced by Audio Playwrights. This performance was given in the Coffee House Club / Salmagundi Club on the 15th of January, 2025. Thank you and good night.